The Commission recommended that the duration of the secondary education should be seen from class 9th through 12th only. However, at this time in 1959, the primary education hadn't extended beyond class 5 and taken up to class 8. So that would have had to be a necessary prerequisite to change primary education being up to class 5 to up to class 8 and then bring in 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th as secondary education. So secondary education was seen as a 4-year period by this commission. Secondary education will consist of 3 stages. Because, as I said earlier, primary education hadn't gone up to class 8 yet, from classes 6 to 8, 3 years were seen as the middle level or middle school. 9th and 10th was seen as secondary, and 11th and 12th was seen as higher secondary. That is how the Commission looked then at secondary education. So primary education up to grade 5, middle education for the next 3 years, 6, 7, 8, and then 4 years of secondary and higher secondary education was seen. So the duration for secondary and higher secondary was still limited to 4 years. The curriculum, what should be taught at the secondary level? Curriculum should consist of compulsory and optional subjects. In other words, what the Commission recommended was, yes, you should have some core subjects that all students must study, but then you should have options. And we see that in our 9th and 10th, 11th, 12th grades even today, when you could go into the pre-medical branch or the pre-engineering branch, the commerce branch, the computer science, the arts, the humanities, and so on and so forth. So you study certain core subjects, but then you have an option of other subjects that you can choose from based on your interest. Optional subjects may be placed into many groups so that children can choose based on their interests. And that's exactly the way it is done. If you're doing pre-medical, you automatically get into biology, chemistry, and physics. If you're doing engineering, you do mathematics, physics, and chemistry. If you're doing computers, you do computers, physics, and math, and so on and so forth. So you group these subjects together, and then children select a group that they will work with. English should be taught as a practical language rather than literature. Because now what this commission realized in 1959 was that if you don't know the English language, trying to teach literature will be fruitless. So forget English literature and focus on English language only. Provide the functionality and the practicality of the use of the English language was seen as important by this commission. Science, mathematics, and national languages be given more stress, because we were getting into that scientific era, and so without a science education, without a mathematics education, and without the national language, education would not take very many people far. So it was seen as important to look at sciences and mathematics more closely and to try and beef those areas up for our students. Religious education be made compulsory at the middle level. Primary level, it was compulsory. It was now recommended by this commission to extend it for the next 3 years, and up to class 8 make religious education compulsory. In the secondary stage, skills like woodwork, agriculture, economics, typing, metalwork were introduced. This was in line with vocational training and technical education. As I said earlier, every child was not going to become a doctor, engineer, dentist, or so on, and so the other areas should not be ignored. You wanted qualified individuals to work in those areas as well. What should the examination system be? The examination system of the secondary stage, reorganize it. Examinations should be held after 10th and 12th grades. So remember, it was 9, 10, 11, 12. So the first 2 years and you have an exam, and the next 2 years and you have an exam. Examination record of all examinations be kept safe for a certain period of time, because records are important, and we did not have the computer and there was no saving in this and that, and so you had to make sure that all examination records were safe and secure for some time. Secondary education boards be allowed to issue certificates. When you sit for the 10th grade exam and the 12th grade exam, the education boards should be able to give certificates that that's what you've achieved. And private students should have the same syllabus as those of regular students, and they should be allowed to sit in the exams. Students where schools were non-existent or girls that were not allowed to travel too far away from home, you could appear in those examinations as private candidates, but the key was you had to study the same syllabus, even if you had to do it at home on your own.